So, the Calgary Flames. Real bad news, as they have potentially really bad news, as Connor Zary takes a knee-on-knee hit last night against the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. Before we get into the obvious frustration of it all, it's a dirty hit. It is, there. I understand when you slow things down, and it's always tricky. And the one time where I really kind of figured this out was, or not figured it out, but when it was really driven home for me, was in the bubble playoffs thing, when Matthew Tkachuk goes in and his skate comes up and it cuts Scheifele. It was his Achilles, right? Like, I'm not making that up. It was the Achilles injury that he had. Either way, really, really bad, and really like a devastating injury, and obviously, hopefully, a mistake. But when you slow it down and you watch it a bunch of times, it obviously looks intentional because that's what happened, right? It is very difficult to judge intent when you are slowing something down, because the way it all plays out, it looks like how it is supposed to play out and how you wanted it to, because that's literally what happened. So it is difficult to kind of judge intent. And when you have a sport the speed of hockey and you are trying to slow it down, and that's just not how these decisions are made. That being said, these are the top 1% of skaters and athletes in the world, and I don't think that guy went out and was like, man, you know what I hate? Connor Zary's ACL. Let's go destroy that thing. I don't think that was the case, but I do think that was... It was a dirty play, and it's not a play that you should have in the NHL. There is obviously a focus on head injuries, rightfully so. Checking from behind, I feel like maybe has gone. It's not necessarily the main focus of people, but I do think that it should still be there. But knee-on-knee hits, we don't see them as often, so it's not as much of a concern for the National Hockey League, but it should be. This is something that can change. Like, this might be a little hyperbolic, and hopefully I am wrong. And I do think we've had some advances in modern science and all of that, but this is something that can change the trajectory of someone's career and someone's life. Like, people joke about it now that I'm 35 years old. People around my age is like, oh yeah, these knees aren't working the way that they used to and all that stuff. But like, you feel those things, right? And I haven't had an injury like that, but I mean, your dude's been a big guy for a while. So, I've asked a lot of the lower extremities, let's just say. And so you start to feel those things, and it really starts to wear on you. So yeah, like, this is something that is maybe not greatly, but it's something that's going to affect this guy for the rest of his life. So I feel like there should be punishment when stuff like that happens. And it is wild to me that we have a sport where you are supposed to be locked in. You have a stick, or in my case, if you're watching, a pen. You have this long stick that you are supposed to be in complete control of. If you're just going to lift the stick of someone and try to get the puck away, and it happens to miss, or it grazes up and it hits someone in the chin, then there is so much gray area in hockey, but that is an immediate penalty. And if there happens to be a little bit of blood, we don't take into account that different people mark up different ways, and that scar tissue is a thing that exists and all of that. We're just like, nope, 4 minutes, boom. There is no gray area for that. Why? Because you have to be in control of your... to steal a MMA term, you have to be in control of your weapons the whole time. And for this, you have to be in control of your equipment at all times. So why, then, is there no accountability? And he takes a penalty in the game. But why is there no further accountability for you having to be in control of this thing that can hurt people in that way? So it seems like there isn't going to be any more discipline for it. I'm not asking for a 10-game suspension. And I feel like it is just kind of glancing by when you shouldn't be, and just like, okay, well, it's whatever. But when that shouldn't be the case. That this is, I think, a pretty serious thing that happened to Connor Zary, and it sucks. So the fact that there isn't going to be a suspension, it just feels gross. Is it the biggest deal? Like, I don't think that you're now going to see players see this and go, oh, well, now I can go out and knee. And we're going to just have a bunch of guys looking like Triple H jumping up with their knee and cranking guys like that. I don't think that's going to be the case. But this is still an opportunity for the NHL to establish somewhat of a norm when it comes to suspensions or anything like that. And the precedent that they're setting is, it's bad, but it's fine. In terms of how it affects the Calgary Flames now, again, as I'm recording this, we don't know the extent of the injury, but it sure didn't look great, did it? Right? Like when you have a leg that kind of, it bent the wrong way for a second, right? So that tends to not be a quick fix. Now, again, this is a young human being. They tend to bounce back. Things are a little bit springier than normal, but even the youthiest of youth, when your knee goes the wrong way and you're not an ostrich or a flamingo, that's bad. Ostrich may not have been the correct one in there, but you know what I'm saying. I'm rolling, right? This is really devastating. Toxic saying in the chat, and I agree. I think within the range of possibilities here is he is out for the season. And like, honestly, and again, this is no inside information at all. That this is just wildly reckless speculation. That would be my bet right now. If I were a betting man, and Lord knows I am, the part that I would put down the most money on would be that Connor Zary has played for the final time in the 2024-2025 season. And that, for a number of different reasons, sucks. From Zary's standpoint, like, again, we just went over how that can affect things down the line and stuff like that. But from just like if we're just focusing on the hockey, this is really bad for the development of him. Like, think of what we're talking about with Jeremy Poirier right now, where he missed basically a full season. And Zary's got about half the year in. But Poirier missed basically all of last season, and that has sent his development back at least a year, and maybe even more, given how horrific that injury ended up being. And just how graphic all of that can be. But it has set him back quite a bit. Like, for Zary, he has obviously established himself as an NHL player, but this was such a great year for his development. And he, like, if you just looked at the stats for Zary, it's not blow you away or anything like that, right? Like, the actual on-ice production, he says, trying to pull it up very, very quickly here, the actual on-ice production, it's 10 goals and 12 assists in 40 games. So we are not talking about someone who was threatening for even a top 100 point mark in the National Hockey League, but it was the way that he was progressing that was so nice to see. He, I think, made incredible strides as an offensive player this year. He showed a dynamic skill set as a setup guy. I think very importantly from a Calgary Flames standpoint, he was a real good zone entry guy. You could just see it on on the opening night. When he scores that goal, makes a real nice move, and gets the overtime winner, that the hands have obviously taken a step forward. The confidence was all the way there. The skating is good. Like, everything had progressed for him, and everything had taken a step. His puck handling, and his sense on the ice, and his touch, all of it. I was saying on Sportsnet tonight when I was on Monday, he kind of already was better than I thought he was going to be. Like, maybe not on a consistent basis, and certainly not from a results standpoint, but from a what the skill set could be, he had kind of already started to push what I thought the upper bound limits were going to be for him in his whole career. And we're talking about his second season and basically his first full year in the National Hockey League. It was all really ahead of where I thought he was going to be. And so to now set that back is quite, I keep using the word devastating. Like, the kid didn't die. Like, this isn't that sort of a thing. But when you are talking about young players adapting to the NHL life, there are progressions, right, that you make. And some guys skip a couple steps, and some guys hang up on some steps. That's why the NHL is not linear. We talk about that a million times. But he has just exceeded every expectation that you would have for him. And the way you keep doing that is by playing, and you keep getting better, and you keep understanding what you have to work with now, and what you have to do to get better at this, and what you have to do to get better at this. And okay, well, that didn't work, but this worked before, so let's go with that. And now when you just miss 40 games of that, and now you're going into an off season where you're not working on, okay, I've got this figured out. Now, how can I be better at this? How can I be better at that? You're not worrying about, or you're not looking at progression. You are now trying to physically get back to where you were before. So just by definition, that sets your development back. And so it really does suck, because this was a real big part for his development as well. That this was a really big stretch for what he was doing, because not only was he getting acclimated to the ranks of the National Hockey League, and not only was he really getting kind of situated and figuring out what he could do, what he couldn't do, and all of that, he was learning how to be a center in the NHL. And that is, for the Calgary Flames, a really important step for him, because they don't have a lot there, certainly not long term, right? That is the next part of what the Flames need to do, is to shore things up down the middle. And he, playing as well as he has down there, has, I think, really brightened the future, I think, for the Flames. I've talked about it quite a bit, and how well he has played. It gives them another option, but it's still something that he is learning. So again, now instead of going into an offseason where he gets to work on that, all of this is presuming that this knee injury isn't good. And if it isn't, then he is now spending that whole offseason kind of working on that, but also trying to build that knee back up and understanding what he can do and trying to get it back to where it was on January 6th. 2025. So yeah, it sucks, because there was a lot kind of developing with him. And as Toxic says in the chat, he was supposed to develop into a 60-point guy next year. Yeah, like he was, I mean, what is he at? 22 points in 40 games. So we're just a touch over half a point per game. So he's probably going to be around like a 45-point guy. I also think that there was going to be a stretch where he was going to get like on a roll. And I kind of had him as a 50-point guy. But if he had gone on a run, like a point per game down the stretch, and got to 60 points this season, I wouldn't have been overly stunned, given what I have seen from him on a night in, night out basis. But you're right, Toxic, like he was supposed to get to that point, and then you're hoping that maybe there's another step that he takes and he can be kind of a point per game guy, and someone you really can rely on from an offensive standpoint for a team that doesn't really have a whole lot of that in the system right now. So that is, it's something that sets things back a little bit. And you don't want to put the entire fate of the franchise on him, but it is something that if there is a stall in his development, it does kind of stall things in terms of figuring out what you all have from a Calgary Flames standpoint. The other part of it that is a bit of a bummer, and there's so many aspects of it, right? Like we can't cover all of them, nor am I equating the importance of, again, being able to play with grandchildren to, hey, the Flames don't have their second line center anymore. But another aspect of this was, I thought he and Sharangovich were really starting to build a pretty good chemistry. And Sharangovich has been discussed a lot in this market this year, and it has not gone the way that he would have wanted it to so far this season, nor would the Flames have wanted it to so far this year. But he is starting to kind of come around a little bit. Like he's starting to do some of those little things that help the team win, right? Like he is that kind of a guy, and has, again, the shot for days and all of that stuff. And he was working a real chemistry, I thought, with Zary. And if that is something that you can now rely on going forward, then that is just another thing that you lock in. And also, as mentioned, Sharangovich is a big part of the future for this team. And you were getting to the point where you had figured out what you needed to do to get the most out of him. And now, if you have to put him with a Rooney or a whoever, and it lessens the impact of what he can maybe be, and working him back to what you kind of wanted for him. So it does suck. And Toxic brings up another good point. I feel bad for his mom too, seeing it live. Yeah, this is the mom's trip for the Calgary Flames, and there's never a good time to get hurt. But I've obviously never done it at the National Hockey League level, but I've had injuries in front of my mom before. It's not fun, and it just adds an extra wrinkle to that when you are understanding what is happening there, and for the mom as well, that cannot be a pleasant experience, and certainly dampening things out in California. For them, and this we'll discuss in a second. This has certainly not turned into the luxurious trip that I think they were hoping it would be with the moms. So, if again, by the time some people are watching this, all of this may be just incredibly dated. But if he is out long term, there is only one other option in the organization, really, for the Flames, and that's Rory Cairns. They don't. It is kind of by default. I don't even know what the second best option would be, aside from going out and making a trade or making a waiver claim or something along those lines. In the organization today on January 8th at 12:47 p.m. Mountain Time, that is the best option. And it is not, it is by default, but he has also earned a promotion, and I would say he was probably next in line to get somewhat of an opportunity anyway. He has been really impressive with the Wranglers this season, and you talk about someone who can maybe set an example for a Connor Zary. Rory Cairns has dealt with a lot of injuries, and that has kind of been the only thing that has been holding him back. When he has been out on the ice, he has produced. Not at this level, I don't believe, but he has at least produced. But chatting with him, we had him on Sportsnet today when I was on with Logo when we were at the tennis thing, which ended up being a disaster. But we had him on, and he understood the first the best ability is availability, right? So that is the first thing I need to do, is figure out how I can train so that I can stay out there for X amount of games. However many games the Wranglers play this season, he wants to be in all of them. So now he may be up with the Flames, but you understand what I'm saying. And so he had that was the first thing that he worked on, and it has now turned out that if you give this guy 40 some odd games in a row to play, he's kind of going to be awesome. And there is a built-in chemistry already with him and Pelche. Those guys work together pretty well down in the American Hockey League. So it checks so many boxes, and it also rewards a kid for a phenomenal season in the American Hockey League. It is, I think, a significant blow to the Wranglers, who are, I think they have the best points percentage, in or at least one of them in the American Hockey League. They're doing really well anyway. So it's just a bummer for them that's kind of how that is going to play out. But or potentially could play out, but that is the joys of being an American Hockey League franchise, I would say. So overall, it all sucks. Every part of it is just dreadful. And when you just look at the human being side of it, it's terrible. And when you start to branch it out further and further, and you start to look at what it means for his development, what it means for the Flames development, and what it means for the organization as a whole, every part of it, it just really, really sucks, because this was a real, it was a developmental win for the Flames. It really was. And you've had a couple of these now this year, right? Mantha is not a big part of the future, nor was he an exceptional player, but he was at least figuring some things out with the team. And then he goes down with an injury. Kirkland was an amazing story, coming out and just being undeniable and forcing his way into the lineup every week. And now he's out with an injury, and he's done for the year. And we will see what happens with Zary. I am not anticipating positive news on that front, but hopefully I am very, very wrong when it comes to that sort of a thing. As Toxic mentioned in the chat before, not overly optimistic about a game tonight. The Calgary Flames are out in Los Angeles, getting ready to take on the LA Kings. Obviously, our thoughts and everything like that are with people out in Southern California right now. I have an aunt and uncle who live out there that they've had to be evacuated because of the wildfire situation. The most recent note on this one, tonight's game is postponed. Okay, that came down 4 minutes ago from Chris Johnston. It came out a little bit more than that ago. Apologies. Yeah, my bad. I did not see that, but Steinberg tweeting out 13 minutes ago, with tonight's Flames game in Los Angeles postponed due to Southern California wildfires, that there's all of these other, the Hitmen game's going to be on 960 tonight, but that this game has officially been postponed. The Flames tweeting things out about that as well. No game tonight, so thoughts to everyone dealing with the wildfire situation out there. It is no fun and can be a very, very, very scary situation. And when you start talking about densely populated areas like Los Angeles is, that gets scary quickly. So hopefully everyone is okay out there. But yeah, not a banner 24 hours for the Flames. I mean, they do win, and Mackenzie Weegar does a fun little waving thing there at the end. And for the Flames, it's another obstacle that they have had to overcome this season. But this one might be the straw that breaks the camel's back for this particular organization. So that is way longer than I thought we were going to go on Calgary Flames stuff today. I kind of thought that would just be 5 minutes off the top just to, fit some Flames talk in, and that would be that. But a nice little conversation there, a nice little chat about something that's really not that nice involving the Flames.